I love that intro because it makes it seem like the show is far more professional than it actually is. But welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. It is Monday night, which means we are here for yet another movie review show. We're here this week to talk about the film Amsterdam, the film that some of us thought would save the box office and some of us thought would actually be good. And turns out we were both wrong. So before we get started on that film tonight, let's go ahead and introduce our regular guests who are back with us once again. Rick Aragon, all the way from Texas. How are you doing tonight?
I'm doing very well. I'm much poorer, but remarkably content.
Oh no, we'll definitely talk about that one as the show goes on. You had a little bit of a expense that came out of nowhere for you. And speaking to people who are going through great times right now, our good friend all the way from Washington, Mr. Rob Motto. How are you doing tonight?
Oh, pretty good. The sports world is going great right now. The Titans and Braves are in great positions because they both won recently, or at least the Braves win by the Mets getting kicked out of the playoffs. So that's always great. At the movies has been terrible. So I'm hoping October shapes up a little bit more than the movie we just had to watch. But yeah, it's all right.
Well, you know the only way the Mets won was by cheating. It was a scandal.
You mean the Padres?
Yeah.
Yeah, the Mets definitely did not win last night. They got sent home packing in expert fashion. All I can say is that the last time the Mets won the World Series, I was 2 years away from being born. So I don't know why people continue to have hope in the New York Mets. They are who we thought they were, as one man once said. I actually did watch the game last night. The Padres look pretty good. I can only keep my fingers crossed and hope that they beat the Dodgers because I can't fucking stand the Dodgers. Like, if anyone else wins the World Series this year, I'll be fine. But just anyone but those assholes.
Yeah, I'll take Atlanta. I'll take Seattle. Anyone. I don't want the Dodgers or Houston to win.
Hey, even with the whole cheating scandal, I still don't hate Houston as much as I hate the Dodgers. Like, in all honesty, if the Dodgers got robbed of a championship, who fucking cares? It's like, why are we still bitching about it 5 years later? It's the Dodgers. Oh, the Dodgers didn't win another ring. Oh, boo-hoo.
Well, if the Padres do well, I'll have my Padres gear ready out there.
Okay, here's another thing. I think, Rob, we can talk about this a little bit here. Aaron Judge just had his 60-second home run, right? So he made, I guess, American League history by the most home runs in the American League. And now you have all these baseball purists out there that are trying to make it seem like that this is the new home run record when it's not. Like, it's not even close. Like, look. I grew up during the steroids era, as they call it now, with Bonds and Sosa and McGuire and all of those guys. I think a lot of people did because that's when baseball was actually popular. People don't like admitting that. People don't like when you bring that up. But baseball could have obviously died a lot sooner than it has had it not been for that era. And now they're trying to do everything in their power to erase it from history as if it's some kind of a black mark in the history of professional baseball. So now you have all these people trying to pretend like Aaron Judge is the new home run king and not Barry Bonds. It's like, no, it's still 73 and it's still Bond. You can, as Macho Man once said, you don't have to like it, but you got to learn to love it. What do you think? What do you think about this? The whole thing with the Bonds and the record and all this nonsense.
I mean, I grew up with watching the sort of like home run race between Mark McGuire and Sammy Sosa. I think it was 1998. And I loved it. I thought it was great. And I mean, during that period, a lot of people hit a lot of home runs, and it turned out, they either admitted to juicing or, they tested positive or something. But I liked baseball a lot more than now. I was a kid, so there's, I'm a bit nostalgic for it, but I do. I think baseball was a lot better then, I think this playoff is going to be really good. And I'm excited for, hopefully they do. Major League Baseball does well because of it. But I have a bit of like nostalgia glasses for the late '90s, and I mean there was great pitching at the time too. Both those teams, the Cardinals and the Cubs, weren't in the playoffs. They weren't good teams, win-loss wise. But man, was that a fun spectacle to watch, that the race between Sosa and McGuire. And I just want to say real quick, Barry Bonds, I still think he's legitimate. He's never been proven to have cheated. He's never tested positive. To me, that record is legitimate.
Yeah, I mean, look, I grew up watching Bonds blasting 700-foot home runs to the point where people were just too afraid to pitch to him, but they just wouldn't even do it. And look, you can also make a note that Barry Bonds is on his way to Hall of Fame numbers even before the whole juicing scandal. I mean, it wasn't like he just was a guy who came out of nowhere and disappeared. You can sort of make that argument, I guess, for guys like Sosa and McGuire, but Barry Bonds had a very illustrious career up until that point. A lot of people completely forget his career with the Pittsburgh Pirates and then his early years with the San Francisco Giants. But yeah, I'm just not a person that buys into that whole narrative. I think we've given the sports journalists far too much power when it comes to who gets into the Hall of Fame, who doesn't get into the Hall of Fame, and a lot of these people just have their heads up their own asses when it comes to situations like that. But yeah, I mean, no, look, the record is what it is until somebody legitimately beats the record. Then you can say, well, this is the real home run king. Until that actually happens, you can't be 10 home runs shy. Be like, well, this is the new record now. We're gonna forget Bonds and then McGuire, then the 2 times that Sosa had more home runs than Judge. Is just stop it. Like, you guys are fighting a losing battle, and you have been for 22 years now. It's ended.
Oh, I'll agree with you on that. The sports writers have gotten a little out of hand. I've seen videos where they talk about, how important it is for the people that they vote for. And I'm thinking, you guys are really just picking people. You're not changing the course of history, but it was such a pompous statement.
Yeah.
And then the press is just, the press has always been like that. So, but if it's any comfort, I have softened over the years when it comes to Bonds and McGuire and Clemens and all those folks. So I no longer hold a hostility, but I'm still angry with the Astros. I'll keep that. I'll keep that anger for a little while.
I personally blame Peter Gammons for all this. I think this is all single-handedly his fault. Anyone else agree with that?
Nope.
Yes.
Yes. Okay, I'll take that. Yes, you're overruled, Rick.
Okay.
Yeah, so I mean that's obviously going on. You got the baseball playoffs going on. Football's happening at the moment. I know the Raiders are playing right now and are surprisingly looking good. I thought that they were going to get absolutely stomped. I was actually surprised the line was under 10. I thought that was going to be a blowout, but right now they're up 17-0. So yeah, pretty big swing there as far as that goes. Okay, let's talk about this real quick. Did anyone see the whole Tom Brady thing yesterday? So
the passer.
Yeah, a normal tackle is now being called roughing the passer, which pretty much helped the Buccaneers secure that win over the Falcons last night. All I have to say is between that and I don't know what the fuck Kyler Murray was wearing yesterday, then that whole that pregame outfit that he was wearing, he looked like he was wearing a Hillary Clinton dress to the game, only for them to get fucking beat by the Eagles at home. It's like after seeing him in that dress, it's like I'm glad they lost, and I hope they lose every other game moving forward for the rest of the season now. It's
I picked the Cardinals to upset the Eagles yesterday, and they had a shot. And of course, Kyler Murray, dumbass, slides before he gets the first down, and they don't have any timeouts. So you can't, if you spike it, it's 4th down. It's not like you get another shot. So, idiot.
But to be fair, it wasn't all his fault. I mean, they shanked a 43-yard field goal, which I feel like if you can't make a 50-yard field goal with ease in the NFL, you should not have a job. I think. Go ahead.
The guy they got, Amendola or whatever, he's not a very good kicker. He was kicking in an emergency situation with the Chiefs a couple weeks ago, and I think that's where they picked him up from, because I don't even think he's a kicker. I think he's at some other position. He might be, but a 43-yarder is a really easy kick. So yeah. I would be surprised if he is.
And then no backlog on the football talk there, Rick. It's just purely baseball. Is that what it is?
Well, I mean, any football news I get comes through my friend Gabe, and he was I think he was I don't want to say he was drowning his sorrows with the Packers before we went to see Amsterdam, but I think he had like two or three by the time I got to the theater. So yeah, and that's pretty much it. I know that he wasn't happy, and he was having an unfortunate meltdown, you know, during the game.
Disgruntled Houston Oilers fan, ladies and gentlemen.
Who, him? No, not
No,
me.
I was assuming it was you.
No, no. Although I do remember the Oilers. I will admit to that. But no, I was never a
Of course
fan.
you
I
do.
was a fan. Huh?
I said, of course you do.
Being from Texas, of course.
That's
Well-
my franchise, Rick. That's who the Tennessee Titans are currently, the old Houston Oilers franchise. So
I do want to give a quick little shout out to our good buddy Duke Nukem joining us in the chat tonight, all the way from Germany, Deutschland, as they like to say. Well, whatever. I don't give a shit.
Deutschland.
Deutschland,
Deutschland,
yes.
Deutschland über alles.
The best part about Germany is the Rock and Ring concert. I'll stand by that point. If you're into like heavy metal and hard rock, that's definitely a big one to go to. If you're into like the soft rock oldies, like Rick, maybe not so, but you know.
All I know about Germany is that that's where they, slap each other when they're dancing.
When was the last time you've seen a German dance in your lives?
In National Lampoon's European Vacation.
No.
Wow.
That wasn't a
Yeah.
documentary? I'm sorry. I thought it was.
It's
Okay,
dated.
okay. Well, we need to move away from this boomer
Yeah.
moment we just had right now. Let's stick in the land of Hollywood. So tomorrow on the Barroom podcast, I think we're going to talk about this a little bit, but I do want to talk with you guys here because you are the movie guys. The box office is not doing very well, and there's really no signs that it's going to get better anytime soon. Now, Rick, I'm not sure if you, not Rick, Rob, I'm not sure if you saw this. We were arguing last week about the projections for Black Panther, and I think it was Avatar 2. And a lot of people are claiming that both of those movies are going to do $200 million like each. Like they think that it's going to be like mega hits. And I'm thinking to myself, you have a Black Panther film essentially without Black Panther. It's just going to be about the secondary characters of Wakanda. And then you have Avatar 2, which I can see it making a lot of money because it was a big 3D gimmick like a decade ago. I can see people going out just for the spectacle of seeing another big 3D movie. I don't think it's going to be because of the merit of how good the film is, but I can see that one making the case. I really don't see it with Black Panther. And then outside of that, everything else that's coming out just looks absolutely horrible at this point. Like this, we're going to talk about Amsterdam a little bit here in a second, but it was one of the films we were actually like kind of looking at. Okay, maybe people actually go out and go see this one, and that didn't happen. Then you're talking about okay, well, next going to happen now. A couple of weeks, Black Adam's going to come out, and that's going to be the big film. But they're talking about that film may do like below 70 million, which for a DC comic book movie starring The Rock seems like that's a very low projection at this point. But that's what they're aiming at right now. And then there's nothing else the rest of the year. Like this is probably one of the worst stretches as far as movies go that I've seen in quite some time. Like I'm not even trying to be like hyperbolic here. I'm really trying to think like what was a worse times in films than this. In the last few weeks, we just haven't gotten any good movies out there. We had The Woman King, we had Don't Worry Darling, we had Bros. All of those movies have didn't really. I mean, two of those movies definitely flopped. I think Don't Worry Darling has actually made a profit. Not by much, but it has made some of the profit back. The Woman King is going to lose money. Bros is definitely going to lose money. It hasn't even made $10 million in 2 weeks. And then we have this film, and I think I'll pull this up right here just to show you how bad things are at the moment. Amsterdam, the movie that we're going to be talking about here in just a few minutes, nearly going to lose $100 million. At the box office. So this is a film that was budgeted at $80 million just for its production alone. That probably has a lot to do with the fact that all the big name stars that they have on this film, like I said, Chris Rock, Margot Robbie, Christian Bale, Zoe Saldana, Mike Myers, Taylor Swift, Robert De Niro, Remy Malek, all these names that you have attached to this film. So they spend a lot on just, the name value of the film, but no one who came out to support this movie at all. It's only made $9.7 million worldwide, 10 million, less than 10 million worldwide at this point. This thing's gonna lose $100 million easily at this point. There's not gonna be no big second week push because the word of mouth wasn't good about this. But yeah, just one bomb after another after another. Like, I'll start with Rick and I'll move over to Rob. What is just your thoughts on the current state of movies at the moment? And do you think it's going to get any better in the next coming months? Because I don't see it happening, and probably for another 6 months, to be completely honest with you.
No, it's not. There's not an event film. I mean, you could say that Black Panther 2 is an event film, and I
Yeah.
think that uh, Edge of Water or Shape of Water or whatever it's called is going to make money because of the IMAX and the 3D. It's not going. It's. But if it were in a regular screen, I don't think. I mean, if it were just purely 2D, it wouldn't be as big as it probably will be. There's nothing in. I mean, what's the excuse here? Like I said, is like I told Christian Toto, the reason that Amsterdam flopped, was it because of heterophobia? I mean, what are they going to blame for this? We've got. It's just all the movies. I'm looking at it. We're at number 16. I don't know if we've had like a movie that we have all really passionately loved and said, "Oh, this is great." No, I don't see it improving. I think it's just going to keep getting down because there's no real interest in any of the movies that we've been they've been showing us. It's not going to get better. It's just not going to get better. And it's sad. I have really struggled to find even five good films. I mean, I think I can, but I don't know. It's just been bad. It's just been bad.
Rob, is it the fact that audiences just aren't interested, or the movie's just not good?
Listen, I have taken great pleasure at being a contrarian over the last more than 10 years, especially on Twitter.
Yeah.
But and my favorite critic is incredibly hard on movies, which is why that's how I craft my own like sense of being, of saying what's good, what's not.
Yeah.
I take no pleasure in saying this, but I felt this way for the last 5 years. I think, but now especially, it is at an all-time low. What is being produced, what is being made for audiences, is just being rejected. Even things that were successful in the past with movie stars to attract audiences are completely failing. And
Yeah.
I don't blame audiences for not going to see Amsterdam, frankly, but this is not a good omen for the rest of the year. Now, I will still go. I'll see, if there's a big name director, if there's an actor I really like, I'll pay money and I'll go see it because I still love going to the movies. But as a business model, I think they really need to put like a serious thought into what will get people in the theater, because right now they're struggling.
There's two points that I wanted to bring up here. It's like, one, if you go back to where we were pre-pandemic, and the last year was 2019, and I'm thinking back to myself, there were so many good films back in 2019. You had Ford versus Ferrari, you had Joker, The Irishman, you had Uncut Gems. There was a few Asian films that I really, really loved. Richard Jewell, I think, also came out that year. Beautiful Day in the Neighborhood. Like, there were a lot of quality films that year. I feel like that was the last good year for movies. Of course, there were terrible films, but as far as actually quality movies, that was the last good year I can remember for like films for the year. And the pandemic happened, and then what happened is that all these studios decided they were just going to shut everything down and delay everything, and then they decided they were going to release everything on streaming, like that was going to help. And I think they realized pretty quickly that the whole streaming plan didn't pan out the way they wanted it to. Now, because of the pandemic shut down all the movie productions, they don't really have anything coming else here in the next, you can look back maybe the next year or so, they don't really have anything else coming out because they pretty much pushed everything quickly, try to turn a buck. And now it's like, well, what are we going to do for the rest of the year? Another thing I think is a big problem here, and I think we're starting to see the realization of a lot of these diversity quotas that we've been seeing in Hollywood pushed over the last few years, where they've mandated, oh, you have to have more people of color, more women, more LGBTQ. They have to be directing, they have to be writing, they have to be this and that. And now we're starting to see those projects being released, and those projects are turning everyone out because the quality is just absolute shit. Because all of the movies are about is about their quote unquote identity as this person or as that person, and nobody wants to watch this. No one wants to go to a movie theater and pay $20 per ticket to watch these lectures, these quote unquote non movies in movie theaters. So I think a big reason why people have gravitated towards Top Gun Maverick, because like I said, Tom Cruise, we said it before, he's one of the few people that actually still values the movie going audiences. But you don't see movies like that that are produced at a rate of like not even three times a year anymore. You just don't. So I think it's partly because Hollywood just simply isn't producing anything that anyone wants to go see. And let's be honest, over the last 6-7 years or so, ever since Trump came along, Hollywood has done a lot to kind of damage their reputation with the American box office, which used to be their cash cow, that used to be their king. But the American box office only represents like a third of their overall box office now. I'm not sure if that's shifted now because of the shutdowns and the international outlet, because they're not getting money from China anymore the way they used to. But there's a damaged relationship there, and I'm not sure how Hollywood in its current state is going to repair it moving forward. Rick, what do you think of just the way things are at the moment?
I was reminded when you were speaking that not since television came along has there been such a crisis where people are rushing films into production to try to get people back into the theaters. And that's when
Yeah.
you had CinemaScope, then you had 3D, you had all of these big gimmicks, and yeah, you were able to still produce great films in the mid 50s, but that's because you had skilled directors and skilled writers. That's the second part. Right
Yep.
now, nobody is to say that just because you are black or gay or Hispanic or a woman that you cannot. But what the people don't have is the experience. You take people who write for television maybe, and you throw them into making a film. You throw someone like Billy Eichner, who does not have a great deal of experience. All he does is a little comedy routine. And I saw what was called the best of whatever his character was from Parks and Rec. I'm thinking, if that's the best, what would be the worst? Because that was just all he did was just scream and almost become a parody of whatever of, what was seemingly a gay man. I don't know if he played a gay man in the on the show, and it's irrelevant to me. But you have that, you have people, you throw people in who don't have experience, and you say, okay, we're going to give you this massive production, and you're going to sell it. You like was it Chloe Zhao, who made Eternals. This is a woman whose forte was in the slow, I guess, more deep and intellectual films. I found Nomadland to be terrible. I did not understand why there was so much love for it. But you give her this film. I don't know if you gave it to her because she's a woman or because she's Asian or because she's an Asian woman. I hope that it wasn't the case. Maybe you gave it to her because she helmed the Best Picture winner. But that movie was terrible, and the audiences rejected it, even if it did have your generation's Gene Kelly. It was just a horrible, horrible film. Had to throw it in there. Um,
Especially now that Spencer's here now. Yeah.
yeah. So, but the thing is, you throw people who don't have experience and you ask them, here, make this big production. They're not going to be able to do it, and you expect a big hit. Top Gun Maverick was a big hit because audiences love the original source. But if you also notice, they did diversity right. They had a diverse cast. They had women. They had minorities. But it wasn't the central point of their characters. They were characters. They were actual actual people. They weren't judged by the color of their skin, but actually by the content of their character. Who would have thought? You didn't need to have all of these gimmicks, and there weren't a lot of callbacks in Top Gun that I remember. There were probably a few, but nothing major where you had to like flash back and think long and hard. If you didn't know the original, you weren't completely lost. So no, I mean you can throw in all the stars. You can throw like you did with Amsterdam. You could have diversity like you did with Bros. That's not a guarantee of anything.
Yeah. Just put it to you this way: the best movie that I've seen in movie theater since Top Gun Maverick released was Jaws, and that's a problem. Like that's a big problem.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I like Minions, but you know,
Yeah, you were the only one.
yeah.
But yeah, I just want to say here, like I've always been interested in directors, and kind of from the point of view that from the French author, but a
Yeah,
lot of directors, but directors who have that relationship with their films, where it's like they have something they're trying to communicate. Outside of like horror movies and like basic westerns, I really can't stand this like very thinly plotted movie where nothing is going on below the surface, or where it takes a moment to explain a bigger picture. I am so sick of poorly plotted movies that that's why I watch so many old movies. That's why I
yeah.
talk about craft all the time, because so like every time I go to the movie theater, it's just it's a lot of poorly edited jump scares, crappy filmmaking techniques that never land and don't make an interesting movie going experience. So I certainly hope Hollywood gets their shit together, but they've been terrible. They've been really terrible the last couple of years. So I'm hoping they right their ship.
I mean, look at it this way. I can look at the top 10 movies that I've seen this year, and we won't spoil that because we'll make our own list at the end of the year. So you can make that be a segue for later on. But there's top 10 movies that I've seen this year. Only 5 of them I've actually seen in a movie theater. Like that's kind of saying something about the direction that we are right now. Like put it this way, like the last couple of weeks, like I mean, there's been some decent films that we've watched that we've covered. Like Blonde was obviously a good film that we covered. That was a Netflix movie. I think we talked about Hustle. I think we all pretty much liked Hustle earlier this year. I just saw Pearl not too long ago. Pearl is a very good movie. That's one that I saw in theaters. So that's one that I will put over if you're looking for something to watch right now. Outside of that, it's slim pickings. I mean, I want to be able to like take people to a movie and go see something that I know is going to be good. But when I see what's out in the movie theater, especially in my area right now, you just don't have that much to go off of. And I kind of made the mistake of taking someone to the movie theaters last week who, I was like, oh, well, Amsterdam would be pretty good. There's a bunch of people who you recognize. Well, maybe this would be, a good experience. And by the end of it, while I was just sitting there, I was like, yeah, I didn't like this movie. Did you hate this movie? It's like, yeah, it wasn't good either. So we both kind of agree that the movie was bad, which kind of sours the movie going experience. But this is why people don't go to movies, because you're not producing anything of quality. So let's go ahead and I guess talk about our feature film right here, which is the film Amsterdam, 20th Century Fox. So this is technically Disney, I believe. Disney still has a hold of this series, so I'm going to go ahead and play a quick little TV spot for the film that we're going to talk about here. So let's start going.
My friend was killed because of something monstrous that he had seen. We're accused of killing someone. We need to clear our names.
We can get out of it.
Find the truth. Don't screw this up.
Did someone slap you?
I got slapped. I got punched.
Yeah, I was there for that one. Oh, no.
Amsterdam, rated R, only in theaters October 7th.
Now, I will say this. I will give credit to the person who I guess did the trailer for this movie, because I think the person who did the trailer made the movie seem more interesting than it actually was. I think a lot of people, maybe myself, maybe because I didn't do my proper research going into this film, but I thought this would be kind of like an upbeat kind of a comedy type film where there was going to be some mystery involved. Like I wouldn't go as far to call it like a Three Stooges, but it was going to be lighthearted in this presentation. I go there and watch the film, and it starts off like maybe it's going to go in that direction, but it never really makes that turn. And then by about halfway during the film, you start realizing, oh, it's just going to be one of those type of movies. And then you kind of realize why this bombed as horribly as it did. We're talking about the film Amsterdam here, people. And before we get started, I wanted to get your initial thoughts on this film. I want to talk to Rob here because Rob, like I said, I think we were both kind of wrong on this film in a couple of ways, but you thought that this one would be one that a lot of people would be interested in just based on what you had seen going into it. What was kind of your thoughts before watching the movie, and where did this film not meet your expectations?
Yeah, so I mean, David O. Russell has a career full of relatively entertaining movies. He's a competent director. He knows what he's doing behind the camera.
Yeah.
He's a guy that understands the image and how to use a succession of them to pull off a dramatic and moving scene. And this movie never decided what it wanted to be. It was like a murder mystery, road trip, buddy comedy sort of detective movie. Like they're the
Yeah.
ones being chased by the cops, or at least being investigated in this murder. But they're trying to figure out the mystery at the center of the movie. So it's a very convoluted set of scenes, distractions, cutaways, and it's like and it basically distracts from the fact that there's no substance. There's no center
Yeah.
to this movie. And I don't know, like Christian Bale is one of my favorite actors. I think he's a tremendous talent, and he is so misused here. He's narrating the movie. He's a drug addict who, it's like he's a kind-hearted kind of idiot,
Yeah.
and so it's supposed to be amused. But here's the thing: the trailer is way more amusing than the entire movie. It's such a letdown.
Yeah.
It's so dull. It's stale. So it was just a completely disappointing experience for me, unfortunately.
Just a quick little note on this film before Rick goes is that Christian Bale has now been in 2 movies that have been objectively terrible this year. Because remember, he was also in Thor: the Love and Thunder as well. So he's been misused both times in major movies so far this year. But Rick, what was your initial thoughts going into this film and what this movie was going to be?
I think the trailer made it look like a fun, zippy, um, kind of almost, I want to say, screwball type comedy mystery.
Yeah.
And what you end up getting was this long, kind of meandering story that doesn't seem to be going anywhere. And there are actually, Bale was the primary narrator, but at least in one instance, you had Washington doing narration, and then another
Yeah.
instance, you had Robbie doing another narration. And I was like, why are we having so many narrators going on? And then it just kind of seemed to go from point A to point Z without really stopping anywhere. It was just, for me, it was just kind of going hither and yon, introducing things that they probably thought were funny but weren't. The whole issue about the birds and the, was it ornithological elements, finding
Yeah.
this the thing, and then by the time they got to Robert De Niro and his character, you think, is this what they're really going to talk about? Some sort of conspiracy that we've never been built up, and you're just kind of throwing it in there. And I was kind of hoping for like a Manchurian candidate moment there, but it didn't happen. And even if it's supposed to be based on a true story, it's just going all over the place. And there's not you we went into the past when you talked about Amsterdam, and I don't know. For me, Bale seemed to be channeling like some sort of Jackie Mason, Woody Allen type impersonation, with kind of
Yeah.
hunched over manner and kind of
Definitely
manner
Jewish.
speaking. Yeah,
Definitely
well,
like
he
a
is half,
Jewish.
Half
comedian.
Jewish.
he is half Jewish.
Right.
He is half,
No. And when he said that, I was like, okay, good. I'm not anti-Semitic. Sweet.
Yeah.
No,
You're only half anti-Semitic.
yeah. You're no Kanye. You're no Kanye.
Right.
But he's like, yeah, he's kind of going for that. I actually wrote in my notes: is he channeling Jackie Mason in his delivery, the way he talks, and it's like going like this is like going, but you're it's just not making any sense. But I guess everyone's favorite part is when your generation's Ginger Roger gets run over. So there's that.
Yes.
Yes, as some people say, they clapped in the movie theater. I was just more generally relieved that we
Okay.
got her out there as quickly as possible.
I was sitting with a bunch of fucking old people. Everybody else beside me in that theater was above 50. So it was to annoy the shit out of these people who paid to see this. I didn't pay to see it. I paid Regal a monthly fee so I could go to any movie I want whenever. So there's a difference.
Nobody cheered at my theater, but
We'll get to that in a second.
yeah, nobody cheered at my theater. But let's just say that she was there so briefly that it left no impact, except on her corpse.
Yeah, I was about to say you just left yourself open for a pun there. You didn't even capitalize on. So let's talk about the film, at least the setup for the film. This movie is supposedly about three people who come together during the time of war, and I guess make a pact that they're going to be like best friends forever or some shit. So the whole setup here is that you have Christian Bale, like I said, who is a drug addict slash doctor who creates these medicines to help war veterans deal with the pain. This is a movie set in World War One times. This is before World War II, by the way. But it's set in it where he's trying to help out veterans by giving them pain medicine to help live with their war injuries. He went to war in France with his buddy, played by John Washington, who's also in the film, and they end up meeting a French nurse, quote unquote, played by Margot Robbie, and they're all drugged up. She patches them up. I think she takes all of the shrapnel out of their bodies, and there was this whole thing about how she makes like art out of it or something like that. But none of that really plays until the ending of the film, so it doesn't really matter that much. The film here is called Amsterdam, right? So I guess when they decided they're gonna do their whole friendship pact thing, they're in Amsterdam in the movie, and you get this very brief scene where they're all kind of like drinking, some people are doing drugs, and they're all dancing and all having this great time. It's like, yeah, Amsterdam, we can't do this in America, but the whole scene of how great Amsterdam is only relegated to like a couple of scenes like inside of a bar. You don't actually get to like see the city at all, like whatsoever. They don't like sightsee or like go around or anything like that. And then after they leave Amsterdam, they never really go back, which is kind of just like, so what was the point of like calling the film Amsterdam and setting that whole thing up when you're just going to completely drop the ball on it as the film goes on? We're going to talk about a lot of the I guess the side characters in this film here in a second. But I want to focus on these three here because, like I said, Christian Bale is just kind of wasted in this movie. John Washington, who I gotta be honest with you, it just felt like he was horribly miscast in this film because a lot of times I was looking at him, especially with like the prosthetic he had for like his injuries. I'm thinking to myself, he looks like a young like little Richard in a lot of these like weird scenes. I'm not sure if like he almost got like a fat face, but kind of like not fat. It's just like it was very like off-putting the way that he looked in some of those early scenes. And then Margot Robbie, who's in the film, I gotta be honest, like I think she's peaked as an actress probably since I, Tonya. I think I, Tonya was her absolute height. Everything I've seen her in since then, it's like you're just like diminishing returns as time goes on. Like you're not even like, oh, she's so hot, I have to go watch her in the movie. Like you're not even getting that anymore. So it's like, what's the point of even booking her in this film? What did you think of kind of the chemistry around these three characters? I'll start with Rob.
I didn't think I didn't think it was existent. It was non-existent.
Yeah.
I just didn't feel much camaraderie or charisma between the three of them. And I mean, they go out of their way, like Christian Bale narrating goes out of his way to say that he's so proud of him and his friend being in a relationship. You know, like,
yeah.
Like, oh, we get and how many times do we have to does it have to be said through the expositional dialogue? Hey, 1930s America was racist, guys. So,
yes.
You know, and so
we even have an entire character who's only in the movie to remind you constantly that, hey, this is a racist time in America.
Yeah. So I didn't feel much chemistry or that they had much of a relationship. And John David Washington, I don't think he's a bad actor. He hasn't yet given a performance that I've been impressed with. And in this movie, he just feels out of place, and he's like just going through the motions. He's saying dialogue that wouldn't come out of his mouth. Yeah. In fact, that's one of my biggest criticisms about this movie in general. It sounds anachronistic. It sounds like modern people talking through the mouths of 1930s characters, and so it really did not connect with me, their relationship. And Margot Robbie, I said this on Twitter yesterday that she's turning into Will Smith. Her box office poison because Harley Quinn didn't work. This didn't work. She's better be careful in terms of what she chooses. Now she has some good projects hopefully coming up, so we'll see.
Well, the Barbie one's probably going to be the big one. If that flops, then she's definitely going to be in some trouble.
Yeah.
Well, yes. When it came to Christian Bale, again, I kept thinking, is this some sort of Borscht Belt chick that he's trying to pull? It's like, for me, it was too what I call actory, where it's obvious that you're acting, you're trying to give a performance, and you're trying too hard to sell it.
Yeah.
With Washington, he felt I'll say, yeah, I agree with you, miscast, but he also seemed very lethargic. Like if he was underacting to try to make up for Bale's overacting, where he needed kind of
Yeah.
to be more steady, but he came off looking slightly drugged and not very interesting. As for Robbie, yeah, I mean, I think she is a talent. We have seen her in much better films, and I know that.
Yeah.
I think all of us really remember her best as she explained financial issues while soaking in a tub. That seems to be the that seemed to be the big selling point for her, and she is a talent. I thought I, Tanya was great. I've not seen Mary Queen of Scots where she was
It's not good.
Elizabeth the First. Oh,
You don't need to see
no,
it. You don't
but
need to see it. It's
0
bad.
out of 10.
It's bad.
And that's too bad. I do enjoy costume dramas, but there was one point when Rob was talking about anachronistic. Yes, there was one at the very end where Bale was talking about, oh, they need to live. You need to live your truth. You need to live their truth. I'm going.
Oh.
That is not an expression that you would use in the 1930s, and
Yeah.
the kind of get hung up in details when they're supposedly showing that old newsreel of the general, and he's out there saying "damn" and all these things. I'm going. You'd never show that in a newsreel. You would never, because you would never actually hear anyone curse on screen in the 30s or 40s. I mean, Gone with the Wind was a rare exception, but they had to fight furiously to get the word "damn" in there.
Yeah.
And but no, I never felt that they connected. They were just there and kind of just thrown together. I didn't believe that they were friends or associates, and definitely I didn't buy the romance between Washington and Robbie's character. I mean, bless them for trying, but there was nothing. There was nothing there. There was nothing there. But yeah, Christian Bale. Uh, what's that little song? You know, there was a little girl who had a little curl right in the middle of the forehead. When he's good, he's very, very good. But when he's bad, he's horrid. And here he was trying too hard. It's like I almost expected him to go like this a lot of the time. I mean, what is the point of this? I mean, that is all performance right there. I mean,
That's the one criticism with Bale, especially in a movie like this, where he tries to be the most serious actor, like in a film that's just simply not that serious. Like there's nothing about this movie that requires like a super serious method acting level performance, and so like you're not gonna win an Oscar in this movie. So it's like well, almost when you're I kind of up that high, and then everybody else can't even meet you like halfway. And like it really just exposes just how bad the film is from that perspective. And then, like I said, the chemistry, there was really no chemistry in the trio here at all. I mean, they go out to like France, and the whole thing is that John's character and Margot's character fall in love. I never felt in one scene that they were together that they had any chemistry as a couple whatsoever, right? Like you can argue that she had more chemistry with Will Smith and Focus than she had in this film with John Washington. And another thing, like even when they're in Amsterdam, and it's like he's Christian Bale's character is like the third wheel of this whole thing. It's like, yeah, well, eventually I'm gonna have to go back because I am married, and I do have like a whole life back in New York here, so I can't just stay here forever and whatnot. And that was kind of the whole, like the whole thing that gets them back to like New York. It's like, yeah, well, I mean, we can't just stay here. We do have lives that we need to get back to. And then of course when they head back home, they fast forward 15 years later, where everyone looks exactly the same after the course of 15 years in the entire war, which I thought was a little, let's just say, lazy to say the least. They even tried to make an effort to make it seem like they were a little bit older in this film. But now that gets us to the point where we got to talk about a lot of the side characters, because there's a bunch of side characters in this movie. So I just kind of want to get your take on kind of like the best and the worst ones in this film. Obviously, Rob's favorite was Taylor Swift, who played the daughter of the person of interest who gets killed early on in the film. And then, of course, there's one great scene where she literally gets pushed into the street and run over with a car, which some people cheered and clapped and celebrated in the movie theater, which I'm pretty sure made a lot of people uncomfortable. But he did anyway. And then of course you have characters like Chris Rock, like I said earlier. Chris Rock's whole purpose in this film is to remind you that hey, it's the 1930s and white people are crazy, and these crackers out here kill you if you look at a white woman the wrong way. And that's his whole dialogue in the film is just that. Then you have Michael Shannon and Michael Myers that are in the film, and I couldn't tell if they were implying that they were a gay couple the entire time or not. Maybe I'm just still having PTSD from Bros. I kind of just projected that onto the film, but there was a whole weird dynamic with their couple. And then another thing, Rami Malek, who's in the movie, playing Margot Robbie's sister, and I'm thinking to myself, there's no way anyone's going to believe that these two are related whatsoever. So what was the casting decision that led to this whole choice? Because I did not buy that they were brother and sister at one single point in this entire film. But I'll let you guys go on there, and I'll start with Rick. What did you guys think of, I guess, the secondary characters in this movie? And who did you like and who did you not like?
Would De Niro count as a secondary character? Because he was the only one that...
he plays a more pivotal role in like the late act of the film, but I guess you could throw him in there.
Yeah. I really didn't understand what Chris Rock was doing there. I mean, I guess if he's just commenting on it, it didn't seem to serve any real purpose except to bemoan the state of African Americans in the United States. But I have to say this. I think probably by default, your generation's Ginger Rogers would be the best one, because she wasn't there long enough to suffer the indignities of all this. But again, real quick, that's what happens when you get pop stars and you try to ram them into being film stars without any training or experience.
Under the pretense that, hey, if we have Taylor Swift in the movie, then all her fans are going to come out and go see it because it's Taylor Swift. And it's like, that shit don't work anymore, Clay.
No, not even for the brief time that she was there. I never got the sense that Michael Myers and Michael Shannon were gay. I just wondered why they were there. Because kind of to give a government... be part of the government that was trying to stop whatever conspiracy was going on. But how I just kept saying, no, I just didn't. I didn't. Well, write me some. I do take requests. No, I don't know any of the characters that I cared about, and I wondered why they were there. Maybe if you had cut some of them out, maybe we would have had a slightly better movie. But I didn't know. I really can't even remember many of them. I'm sorry. I don't care about any of them. None of them impressed me.
So what you're saying is they left a great impression on you.
They left no impression. Although with Malik and what's her? I'm sorry, I'm not going to Anya Taylor Joy. I assumed that they were married because I was like, is that like another sister that I don't know about? She might have been. I don't know. She might have been better at this, but yeah, Rami Malek had a very interesting way of speaking. He had a very particular tone that he seems to have carried over from Freddie Prinze. So I was like, oh, okay,
yeah.
But it was an embarrassment, not of riches. I'll put it that way. Just an embarrassment.
Yeah, my favorite character. Yeah, my favorite character is probably Anya Taylor-Joy, just because she was a bitch, and she kind of plays against her type, which, she usually doesn't play a bitch. So I found that pretty entertaining. That's about it. In terms of like the positives I can take away from the supporting characters, because like a lot of it was just very cartoonish. A lot of it was very busy. We're distracting you, and a lot of failed jokes. A lot of and I could hear the groans in the theater, just like, oh, really? Like. I don't know, when you can't even land like a comedy, some sense of humor in your movie when you're trying that hard, I don't know, man. I don't know why this movie was made. Why was it greenlit? Because like there's no connective tissue storytelling wise. They introduce ideas like racism instead of building the atmosphere to try to like convince you of it. They're telling you instead of showing you. And so it really bothers me because the people that are involved in this are skilled filmmakers, and it's like, what the fuck are you doing?
I'm glad you brought that up because there was something you mentioned earlier too about how they introduce ideas into this film that they never actually capitalized on. Like we talked about earlier about the film is named Amsterdam, so you figure this would be at least set or have some significance to Amsterdam. It really doesn't have anything to do with it whatsoever. There's even a part, like I said early on, where they're entitled in like this murder mystery, right? So that they're like the prime suspects because Christian Bale's character knows the police officer who's a war buddy of his. They never really go throughout the entire film feeling like they're under the gun of the law at any point during the movie. Is like the cops aren't like looking for them in the streets. There's no APB out for them, so they're just kind of like just moseying along the entire time. Then end up working with like the FBI to figure out who the real villain was. So it's kind of like what was the whole point of the murder mystery if they were going to be working with the feds anyway? And then another thing is like you said, they keep introducing this idea. Well, maybe racism is going to play a role somewhere in this movie. It really doesn't. I mean, there's really no racist angle towards it that it affects the central of the character outside of, well, it's the 1930s and interracial marriage isn't legal yet, so Robbie and Washington can't go run off together and be in love. So that kind of like a conflict, but it's like you said, you don't buy into their relationship at any point in the movie. So it's like, who even cares about that aspect of it? Like they keep introducing things that be like, oh, okay, this is entering. Let's see where this goes. And then it just goes absolutely nowhere because at the end of the day, it's all just smokescreen for what the true plot of the film is, which is probably the worst idea they could have made altogether.
So I noticed that the two of the three main characters, okay, are Park Avenue liberals. I just want to, like, in the 1930s, they were rebelling from their greedy rich family, but and it's like do you people see yourselves? Do you see yourselves when you write this shit? Because it's like it's so embarrassing.
No, they clearly don't because there's the big twist to this film, which is like, are you guys not reading the room at all here when you come to the conclusion, the whole climax of this movie, and what you guys are trying to present versus what reality actually is? And it feels like this film is living in its own reality. But Rick, go ahead on what you were going to say.
No, I was going to say that they were. She was living, what is it? Not La Dolce Vita, but living some sort of avant-garde life as some sort of surrealist artist, and it's like, gee, why couldn't Dali pop in there, or Picasso, or like Buñuel or someone pop in there to liven things up? This is so. I was more interested in her alleged art, but it's not a surprise that she had to be like the rebellious woman. I was hoping that would be a bigger mystery when they were talking about how she can't go back to America, or that, she doesn't want to go back. I was like, oh, my family will find out. It's like, oh, what, that's going to be a big mystery. What was it that she, was it a major crime? No, I'm related to rich people whom I don't like and who are like in the early
my family is Connecticut Blue Bloods. That's essentially what the twist was.
And they like Hitler, whom most people have never heard of at this point. Okay, that's going to be fun. There's like another Hitler thing. It was like you had Mussolini there. I mean, I wish they had been. Well, no, it wouldn't have been historically accurate to have gotten Mussolini, but it was like I wasn't excited. It was. I felt bad for my friend Gabe though. He was looking forward to it. He actually was very excited to see it. He was sorely disappointed. But what was the whole thing about the birds? And why are we wasting our time talking about birds and all of this?
It was some quirky character trait that had absolutely no impact in the film story, like whatsoever.
No, so. No, I have nothing more to add. Rob pretty much summed it up well.
Yeah, so I mean, when you look at this film, especially when you get to like the second act and especially the third act, you think there's going to be like some kind of like greater interesting mystery that you just spend your whole time like waiting for. It's like, okay, where is this going? Like, what is this going to lead to? Like, why are they introducing all these themes? And you realize that they just pretty much use this movie as kind of like a speaker box for a bunch of social commentary about how life in America was during the 1930s. And like I said, Chris Rock is making comments about about how the racist the society is over and over again, even though it has no bearing on the script. And they talk about, interracial relationships, like even the whole relationship of Christian Bale's character and Zoe Saldana's character, which goes nowhere, right? Because they bring her in like she's gonna have this major role in the story. It's like, oh, she's gonna do the autopsy and she's gonna have a big role, and it's like, no, like she kind of disappears like halfway throughout the movie and only comes back in the very last scene. And talk about relationships you don't buy into. Did anyone buy into that relationship at all?
It's okay because she's Portuguese, so there's the difference.
Oh yeah, totally believe that.
She's Portuguese, so I was like, okay,
she's there so Christian Bale's wife can slap him. It's like, who is this woman? That dumb scene.
Here's another thing. It's New York. You couldn't just lie and say she was like Puerto Rican or something that would be a little bit more believable than Portuguese. Like...
I wonder though, because there was, and I kind of getting a little historical here. There was a case where I think it might have been J.P. Morgan's librarian was actually black, but she was light skinned, so she said that she was Portuguese, and so she managed to be among the echelons of power because of this. So I don't know if they were drawing from that. And I know that they were also drawing from that Madison Square American Nazi rally. If you see that gigantic portrait of George Washington, that's a replica of that big portrait of George Washington that was at the German American Bund had when they had their rally. And there was a documentary short that was nominated for Best Documentary Short about the rally. It only lasts about 7 minutes, but I recognized the painting. At least it looked too similar. Besides that, I was wondering, why are all these pro-Nazi people at this reunion of veterans when they don't appear to be
with a bunch of color people?
Yes, it was like, why are they there and yelling in German? I didn't understand that part.
Yeah, because keep in mind this is supposed to be like right before like World War II, like right in like the early stages of that. So I don't even think we're technically at war with Germany and like all those other countries just yet. But they still had to, because in their minds, like, well, we have to sell the Nazi thing, right? So let's just put that in there. And another thing, real quick before Rob goes, and Rick just reminded me of this. Towards the end of the film, they imply that Margot Robbie and John's character have to like leave the country because they've exposed themselves for having an interracial relationship. But at the end of the film, Christian Bale is with Zoe Saldana. So it's like, why did those two have to leave the country, but they're going to just stay in New York and be a happy couple now?
Because
if interracial relationship
is...
Well, here's the really irritating thing about this whole thing. I love history. I make sure I know what I'm talking about when I reference history. The whole thing that this movie mirrors, the Smedley Butler being convinced or courted by this sort of fascist takeover of FDR. Like, it had nothing to do with the Nazis. It was our own senators and fucking government that was in on it, or at least part of our government that was in on it. Like, it had nothing to do with the Nazis and everything to do with like somebody trying to subvert democracy. But like, just tell the story. Just tell the story. Just tell that story. It's interesting. But they made some contrived reason to say Trump bad, and hey guys, we need to have democracy or else Trump's going to get reelected.
There was some sort of speech that De Niro made or comment about how we need to save democracy, otherwise we'll let, or something like that.
Democracy's not in danger.
It's not only that, but it's the optics of, okay, we're gonna create a movie where the Nazis are trying to take over the democratically elected FDR, who went on during World War II to create internment camps for Japanese citizens. So it's like you're trying to say we have to fight fascism by electing a guy who's gonna throw you into a camp because you're Japanese, and we can do that because it's wartime now. So there's a lot of conflicting narratives here. And here's the big thing. I guess we can talk about this. The big twist of this film is that we find out that there's this secret organization run by rich elites. Follow me with this one here, right? A secret organization by rich elites who are trying to uphold world governments all around the country so they can be installed with fascist dictators like Hitler.
Yep. Kind of froze there.
Yeah, there he is.
Oh, okay. I like Rob had froze. I thought it was on his end. I didn't know I didn't went anywhere, but as I was saying, so the whole idea here is that you have these Nazi I guess world governments by installing fascist leaders, and they want Robert De Niro's character to deliver a speech that is going to somehow make everyone support fascism, because it's like, well, if the veterans listen to him, then we can use him as our puppet or whatnot, right? So it's completely it's this completely tone deaf idea where they're trying to flip the kind of the central idea of like the World Economic Forum, where they're going around and installing world leaders around the country for this whole globalist idea that we're witnessing in real time, and they're trying to flip it by saying, no, see, the real problem is the fascists. The fascists are the ones that are trying to take over. We need to stop them. It's like, so go ahead, Rob, because I know you.
They reverse engineered what is actually happening right now. I just want to point that out.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay. So what's going on right now? They're saying, oh no, it's fascism that we have to look out for, even though like we're coming from a point where that's exactly what we're doing.
Yeah, exactly. It's like they keep bringing up Mussolini. Mussolini is bad. He's a fascist. It's like, do you know who Mussolini was inspired by? Karl Marx. You know who else was inspired by Karl Marx? The same people who made this movie.
Yeah, unfortunately.
Yeah. What did you guys think of just the ending? Because this is where this whole thing like fell apart. Like I said, I see it coming with the whole thing. It's like, oh, it's the rich Nazis that are controlling the world all over, and then we need to stop them because they're gonna bring global fascism. It's like you guys are projecting and reaching so hard right now. Like I couldn't even take the ending seriously after that, and they went all in on the ending for this whole thing.
Where's Francisco Franco when you need him? That's all I've got to say on that point.
There's Pinochet when you need him.
Yeah, it's like, well, as I've said more than once, it always seems Hitler. I mean, they've got so many other dictators they can pick, but yeah. I mean, if this is supposed to be based on a true story, and I don't know enough about the true story to comment about how close it is, but at the end, I'm thinking, no, I don't think that this guy who's supposedly led the bonus army to protest in Washington was going to rally veterans to his side to try to have some sort of coup d'état against Roosevelt and his openly lesbian wife Eleanor. So because Bros, that's my PTSD from Bros. So I wasn't convinced, and then when you had what's supposed to be the assassination attempt, I really was hoping for a recreation of the Manchurian Candidate type of situation, but it's like he even with the harness that Bale had, it's like he got shot and like, oh, okay, I'm still moving, I'm kind of just standing here. Whatever, luckily for whatever symbolism or allegory was kind of going over my head, because I was like, just end this. I want this movie to finally be over. I no longer care. I don't believe this conspiracy, because it was it almost felt, even though it's supposed to be based on history, it felt like it was thrown in at the last minute to give them something to do. It would have been much better if they had focused on the actual conspiracy than try to spend all this time going back and forth between Amsterdam and her Dali-esque art and whatever else was going on. It just seemed a lot of filler to get to like the actual point of the movie.
This movie is made for? This movie is made for dumb people so that they can go watch this film and towards the end go, see, this is happening just right now. Except for this time, it's the Republicans who are the Nazis. It's like, yeah, I was kind of worried about this when I saw some of the people who were attached to this, like Taylor Swift and Michael Shannon and Robert De Niro, all these actors who over the last 6 years, ever since we've gone to this age of Donald Trump, have all been openly outspoken about Republicans and Nazis and blah, blah, blah. And I was like, oh, guys, it's going to be one of these type of movies. Like, am I walking into a trap here? And essentially it is. It's just one of these movies where it's the 1930s and the Hitler is the biggest issue. Keep in mind, Stalin is still alive around this time, and he's probably killed about like 6 times as many people as Hitler did, but no one ever talks about that.
But Uncle Joe is our friend. How dare you?
Yeah, like I said, they had to like throw in like the allegories of January 6th and fascism, and it's like, oh, we have to make sure that we need to stop the Nazis. Remember, the Nazis. The Nazis are literally the only bad people in world history. There's never been anyone who's killed more people than the Nazis ever have. There's never been a dictator with any kind of ideological bent that's killed like 40 million people in world history. That just hasn't existed. It's only been the Nazis.
Yeah, I look when we got to this point, when we got to the end of the movie, it was already a really bad movie. This kind of puts it into a terrible category because not only can you not make a competent plotted movie, not only did you cast stars and you paid out the ass for them, they couldn't even deliver your piece of shit script. You've got to basically, you have such a lack of filmmaking that you have basically have people spouting expositional dialogue and platitudes, and none of these characters, none of the main three characters are flawed in any interesting way. They have no personality. And so getting to this point and then for them to go off the deep end of ideological like nonsense, I was like, okay, this is truly one of the worst movies of the year. Now, maybe you guys will disagree with me. I think it's truly one of the worst movies of the year because so much was sunk into it, and this is the result.
There is an argument. I'll say this real quick.
Failure.
Yeah. No, I was just going to say there's an argument for that because this movie had more of a budget and more of like star power attached to this compared to something like Not Okay, which is a movie I absolutely despise, but at the end of the day, it was a small budget thing that they did for Hulu. This wasn't like a mass release film like this movie was, but finish your point.
No, yeah, I was just going to say this, honestly, if I had to predict, it was a planned failure. It feels like a planned failure. That's how bad it is in terms of its execution. So I personally hope not for the people involved, but it was truly awful sitting in that theater and experiencing it.
I can't believe that people genuinely aim to make a bad film. I mean, not even Ed Wood.
Did you see Bros?
It was a landmark in cinema, sir.
Yeah,
it was a landmark in cinemas.
The first and last gay rom-com in 100 years.
Until we get the Hallmark same-sex romance.
Yeah.
I guess whatever allegory, like I said, was kind of passing me by because by this point I had completely lost interest in what was going on. There was just so much that had happened beforehand that just seemed pointless, and you just have all of these characters just there. They had no point to them. And by the time we got to this speech, I'm thinking, how is one speech going to convince all these veterans to rally for this cause? I mean, it just didn't seem to make any sense, regardless of how historically accurate or
because remember in the minds of liberals, veterans are mostly Republican leaning. So if one veteran speaks for all of them, then they're all going to listen because because it is another thing when Hollywood like snitches on themselves like this. It's like there's a reason why they're so freaked out about what Kanye West said, and we'll talk about this more tomorrow. But there's a reason why they're freaked out by what he says because they like to use influencers to influence people based on their follower count and how much the outreach is. Kanye West is a guy who can outreach a lot of people, right? So they're figuring, oh my God, if Kanye says these things and all his followers are going to listen to him, they're going to get influenced by him because that's how we operate. That's how we influence people by the use of celebrities with large followings to influence people. It's like we can't allow him to use our own playbook against us.
Well, I've seen the influencers that the Biden administration has come up with, and they were they were a little eccentric in my view. But yeah. I just didn't care at this point about all of these people and this conspiracy, because the conspiracy almost seemed like it was a last minute addition. It was like, oh, we need something here. It didn't play a part for me in any of the story. And just for the record, I am old enough to remember when John Kerry you was campaigning based solely on his military record. So no, Democrats do have people in the military. So I just want to throw that out there. So I don't know if they were thinking. I don't know if the people who made this thought that all veterans were Republican, but it. I don't know. Like I said, by the time we were getting to any kind of allegory about the Republicans or Trump or January 6th or what have you, I was just too bored to care whether there was anything going on
Right.
there. They just seem pointless, and I don't know even how they managed to quote solve this mystery because it just seemed to be thrown in there. It was just taking forever to get to a point. So at least I mercifully was too bored out of my mind to see any great allegory tied into today's world. But if that was the emphasis, if that was the point, um, again, like Rob, I don't go to movies, or Jacob, I don't go to movies to be lectured. Even if I agree with the lecture, even if I agree with them, I don't go into these movies to be told what to think. I go into these movies to be entertained, to be taken away from the issues of the world. You want to throw them at me, then you're not going to succeed, even if I agree with you.
Yeah, look, like I don't know what it's going to take for these people to realize this. People are not paying $20 a film to be lectured to, and this is what this film tries to do. And not only that, but the more sinister part of it is that, like you said, when you watch the trailers, you think that this is going to be something that's fun and exciting. So the trailers fool you into thinking that this is going to be something else than what it actually is. Then you go in there and watch the film, and it's like, oh, this is what the film is. And had I known that, I probably would have just stayed home, or we could have picked something else. But this is exactly what you get out of a film like this, a film like Amsterdam, which the more I'm talking about it, the more I really just didn't like it, from the fact that there's, like I said, there's just so many things that could have been good had they actually wanted to make a competent, fun movie, but they clearly didn't want to go that route. So everything they introduced falls flat on the floor, and you think to yourself, okay, this is a 2 hour, like 10-minute movie that had a whole bunch of stuff that you could just cut out entirely because it went nowhere anyway. The film's not enjoyable. Even the people who I went to go see this with did not enjoy this film. There's no way I can really put this over. So I thought to myself, okay, is this better or worse than They Them? And I had to think, like, really think about it. It's like, I think I actually like They Them better than this movie. So just based on that alone, I'm gonna give this a 1 out of 5. Won't be one of my worst films of the year. Probably bottom tier of that list. Maybe honorable mention because I've seen so many other shit that's horrible than this. But yeah, this is just a shit movie from top to bottom. This is a massive disappointment. This is coming from people who were actually excited to watch this film going into it and just completely dropped the ball. Yeah, so 1 out of 5 for me. What about you, Rob?
Yeah, I'm also going to give it a 1 out of 5. I don't know. Maybe that's being generous because I gave Rose a half a star.
Yeah.
So I guess hey, this movie made more money than Bros did. I guess that's something, but
Barely.
right,
Barely.
The last two movies that I've seen in theater, Bros and Amsterdam, both been terrible. And
Yeah.
I don't know. Look, I tried to get some enjoyment out of seeing Taylor Swift get run over, and on Taylor Joy kind of playing against against her role. But there really was not much here to appreciate or enjoy the movie. See, even the movie's cinematography to me kind of looked like crap, like gray and drab, and just not even interesting to look at. So the things I was excited for, why I go to a movie, just did not deliver at all.
And not only that, but outside of like I said, the one scene where Taylor Swift gets run over, where there's kind of like an outdoor shot where they're at, I think it was like a movie theater or something like that, where they try to make it look like the 1930s. They really don't put too much into making the scenery around them look like it's like the 1930s time, because everything is essentially interior, where they're inside, so they don't have to like worry about spending money on like cars or like sets, or even like the house that where Robert De Niro's house kind of felt like kind of a typical movie set more than like an old school like home the way that it was. So they cut a lot of corners as far as the production of this film goes, even to make it look like what it was. Rick, you're muted, so before you say that, just go ahead and tell us what you thought of the film, your final thoughts.
Well, I thought it was very disappointing because, again, I think my friend and I, more him than me, were expecting this kind of zippy, fun, screwball type comedy that had some sort of murder mystery type element, a bit like See How They Run. Although I didn't like that one very well, and just for the record,
Yeah, I didn't like it either, but it's better than this film. I can say that much.
yeah. And when you were talking about whoever looked like Little Richard, I thought David Oyelowo looked like Little Richard in See
MLK.
How They Run.
In Selma.
Yeah, and then
He
nothing else.
he looked like Little Richard in that movie, so he would be better. But it was a terrible disappointment, especially because you had bigger stars and you had you had someone who has written and directed what have been probably better films, although he is controversial in certain circles, probably because he's out there screaming at Lily Tomlin. So, but I found
Put those actors in their place. No.
well, I was disappointed that they didn't use footage of their verbal fights when she got her Kennedy Center honors tribute. That would have livened up the ceremony. I'm going to probably give this maybe I'll probably be generous. Maybe one.
No, stop being generous. Stop it.
I'm a softie. Maybe a 1.5, maybe possibly a 2. If it might get half a point for that Taylor Swift thing, you know that should liven it up. Even if no, I guess I can't call her your generation's Ginger Rogers anymore. Geez, you guys take the fun out of everything. I can't compare her.
It's not even a good comparison.
Well, I would have actually. She's more like your generation's George Gershwin, Ella Fitzgerald combo, but most people don't know who either of them are. So I had to.
I do, and no, that's a disrespect
yes, because she's the greatest
to both those people.
She's the greatest songwriter we have today, and she's apparently, she could outsing Ella if I'm supposed to be believed, or I mean, if her hype is going to be believed. And by the way, she's going to win an Oscar, not for this, but for a short film. So get ready for that.
Great.
So no, I maybe a 2. It was it's a long and boring. It could be. I have the heart of it. We're
gonna start calling you Boomer X. How about that? Because you're on the borderline of Boomer Generation X.
Yeah, I could live with that. Well, no, but don't argue with me. But just to kind of wrap it up from my perspective, the movie again was far too long to get to where it was going. All the performances, except for maybe Robert De Niro, didn't seem to either take this seriously or were really trying too hard. There is no story here. There's no point to this. Amsterdam Amsterdam's probably better than The Gray Man. I don't know if it's better than I don't know if it's better than Bros, but this
Definitely
is I will put it this way. I think Amsterdam so far is going to be my biggest disappointment of the year. I was expecting a lot better than.
I think we all feel that way. Yeah, I don't think any film has let us down as much as this one did. But yeah, it's not good at all. But before I let you guys out of here, I do need to talk about this because this is another thing to show you how bad our box office is for movies at the moment. Bring you back here. So this was the weekend box office. Smile, which I got to put over Smile. I'm not sure if any of you guys have seen this one. It's a decent horror movie. It's not the greatest, but it's a decent horror movie. And they had a genius marketing strategy with this film because remember talking about this a couple weeks ago how they paid actors to go to like baseball games and sit behind home plate and make these weird faces into the camera, and that was kind of like the marketing strategy. It worked because this is a film that is #1 at the box office 2 weeks in a row. I believe they only had like a budget somewhere like 20 million, I want to say. Actually, even less than that, 17 million. And they've made $92 million at the box office so far. So they've taken advantage of this kind of 4-week period where we had Bros and Amsterdam, The Woman King, Don't Worry Darling, all these movies that had far more as far as marketing goes. And they've made way more profit than any of these other films have made combined, all things considered. I mean, I got kind of put over Smiles. Like I said, it's not a great movie, but the way they've kind of taken advantage of the marketing and actually put out something that at least has a positive word of mouth right now, they're kind of killing it there. And then this really just goes to show you how bad this film is. Amsterdam, keep in mind, Amsterdam had an $80 million production budget with way bigger stars. Pretty sure they had way more on marketing. And they lost to a film called Lyle Lyle Crocodile, which no one has heard of. When people said that this film was the number 2 movie in the box office, everyone kept saying, what the hell is this movie? I haven't seen a trailer for this movie. I haven't seen anything before it whatsoever. Like, what is this film? And it beat Amsterdam, not only beat them, almost doubled them up at the box office, which is embarrassing, all things considered. Then you see all the other shitty movies below that. But what are you just kind of your final thoughts here, just the box office and the way that this thing is going, Rick, with just the way we are in films right now?
Well, I think Lao Lao Crocodile is based on a book, a children's book, or maybe a series of books.
Yeah.
I know because I shelve them. I actually, it's part of my job is to put them away. So I don't know what it says about the market that this movie, which stars at least 3 Oscar winners, a couple of nominees, one of the biggest pop stars you have today, lost to a singing crocodile. That people would rather have watched that than see this movie that was super hyped. I think that kind of shows really how desperate audiences are for something. And this is I'm assuming it's a family film, and that's geared toward kids. So parents wanted to take their kids to see something like this, the same way they went to see Minions. I mean, I know you guys didn't like it. I did. But at least is because I understood.
How can you like that sort of thing? Like I just on a personal level, how can you actually enjoy that? And I know what you said earlier today about mindless. It can be brainless, but not mindless.
No, mindless is fine. Brainless is not.
Yeah, that's a brainless movie. It's these chuckling, shattering, fat little midget-looking. I gotta stop myself, but yeah, little.
That is part one of the.
To be fair, that movie's bad, but it's still better than the one we saw tonight.
Thank you, Jacob. One of the reasons is because I'll tell you why, Rob. This is just my view. First, I actually.
A little too much information there, Cassie. I'll just put it that way.
I'll have to tell you my. I think I might have told you. Was it my Road to Perdition story? But when it comes to Minions, they knew their audience and they knew what they wanted to see. They wanted to see a lot of these talking Twinkies, and they wanted something very simple. And they got the late 70s feel, so their parents could take them to see this, and they could get some of the inside jokes. So they tailored the film toward their target audience, and that's why I liked it probably better than you, because I don't think that you or Jacob were the target audience. So I have to see the movie.
I would hope not.
You'd be surprised. I have to judge a film based on what the target audience is. So maybe if I saw Lao Lao Crocodile and I saw that it was kind of geared toward kids, I might be more predisposed to give it a positive review. Amsterdam's supposed to be geared toward adults, and no, it was trying too hard. It wasn't cartoonish enough to be like the trailer was letting it out to be. It was meandering all over the place where you would lose interest. I lost interest. I think I know that my friend nodded off, and I think I might have nodded off as well at a certain point. So I didn't care for this movie, but that's why I actually, sorry to kind of ramble, that is why I liked Minions, and that's why I've liked a lot of the Fast and Furious movies, because they're mindless. They're just junk food. It's a good time. I'm not supposed to take it seriously. It's only when you have Camaros or Pontiacs up in space that I think, all right, now you're just insulting my intelligence. That's when I can't tolerate. So there's a difference between mindless and brainless.
The filmmakers of Amsterdam treated their audience like children. They didn't treat them like adults, and that's who their audience ultimately was. So it's disappointing.
Well, to be fair, any movie that tries to indoctrinate or tries to lecture its audience, it's literally treating its audience like children. That's essentially what they're doing. They make it seem like we're in a second grade classroom. Trying like, oh, you need to understand history that says that only the Nazis were bad and that the communists had no infantry plans whatsoever, even though that there was literally congressional hearings regarding communists infiltrating the government and our society back in the 1940s around the same time. But no, those are the Nazis, were the bad ones. Don't pay attention to the communists.
The Un-American Activities Committee was a sham. You should know that.
Yeah.
It was all a fraud. They were all innocent.
McCarthy did nothing wrong except for stop.
You see, this is. I will say this, and I will say this as a old school liberal. I generally view the American Unactivity. What is it?
The House Un-American Activities Committee.
Un-American Activity Committee, right? It was largely like bullshit and driven by hysteria. I'm not saying it didn't unearth like some shit, but like there's a lot of people who got blacklisted that were like, okay, so what if they were a commie? I really don't care, but like don't elect them to your government. But like I don't know, I don't like any witch hunt, and so like shit like that just I makes me uncomfortable, and I tend to not like it no matter where it comes from.
Well, I think it's only recently that there are some people who begrudgingly might think the Rosenbergs were possibly guilty.
Wow.
I thought they were guilty.
Yes.
I thought they were legit guilty. Yeah, I know McCarthy was right. Yeah.
No, the Rosenbergs were, but for many years. I mean, to be fair, I haven't seen Angels in America, but I think the whole premise. I mean, whole premise, but part of the plot is that Roy Cohn is visited by the ghost of Ethel Rosenberg, who condemns him because obviously she was innocent.
Dude, it's so gay and campy, and I know it was made by Mike Nichols, who I don't think he was gay, but I think he was definitely familiar.
Well, he was with Mary Diane Sawyer. I don't know how you think that.
Okay, whatever. He was a theater guy. I mean, come on, seriously? He was a theater guy with Elaine May, Nichols and May. But yeah, I mean, whatever. Angels in America was very like campy theater oriented, like hallucinatory nonsense. But yeah, whatever.
Well, I mean, I haven't seen it, but I mean, it's only now I think begrudgingly that some people. I think I know some people who still think that they were innocent and they were all framed. So this is the mindset that you would be working with. And then I've yet to see Trumbo, but I'm curious about that one since they did send me the screener.
Can we just meet somewhere in the middle? Like it can't. Like let's condemn the communists that actually mean us harm, and then let's everybody else we'll give a free pass.
Well, you know what they say. The only good commie is, and I'll let you guys finish that because we're on YouTube. So
yeah,
the only good commie is elected to Congress. There you go. That makes it better.
Is elected to the FBI.
How did it get to this point?
Well, clearly you didn't pay attention to the movie. It told you exactly how we got to this point.
I was nodding off. I was bored.
I think everyone was fucking asleep. Yeah, I think we could have listened to a lot of other people before Ron Paul, but point taken. Let's go ahead and wrap this up for the night. Got a bunch of stuff coming up this week, and I also got some stuff coming up next week as well. But let's go ahead and start off with our good buddy Rick. Where can they find you if they want more of you here on the show or on the podcast? Or maybe they want to read your crap. Where can they find it?
You can find it at Rick's Cafe Texan or Rick's Texan Reviews. I'm still trying to work through my backlog of DVRs. I'm pleased to say that I'm starting to watch new films. I will be doing a comparison of Blonde, the miniseries, and the Netflix movie. I'm also hoping to do a comparison between the Ingrid Bergman Anastasia and the animated Anastasia, neither of which I have seen. I mean, I saw the animated one yesterday. Hopefully, I'll see the Ingrid Bergman one later this week. So I'm going to try to be working on more comparisons between originals and remakes, and hopefully seeing better films. Although I know Gray Man is still up there among the worst.
No, No, but yeah, go ahead with that opinion. Rob, where you got coming up? What do you got coming up this week? YouTube channel?
Yeah, so no, I don't think so. But you can follow my Twitter because I talk about movies there. No, I've been watching a lot of horror movies lately. I'm watching Criterion's 80s horror series right now, so watching a lot of good movies. Road Games, which is a Richard Franklin directed movie, which is very Hitchcockian, so that was a really good movie to watch over the weekend. And then they have also a vampire series that I've also been checking out, so I'm just really like knee deep in horror movies this month because why the hell not? But yeah, I'm going to be doing some more writing, which I keep postponing. So check that out. I'll have it out soon, I think.
Everyone in the chat can just keep bullying Rob on Twitter to tell him to get that YouTube channel started. So here's the thing. Next Monday night should be a fun night because, in theory, it should be a fun night because we will have some new guests on here Monday night because we're going to be reviewing Halloween Ends next week. So not only is myself, Rob, going to be here, Rick, who we had a whole argument on the Barroom podcast last night about the fact that Rick has not seen a single Halloween movie yet. He's going to watch this one to be his first one. The last one of a rebooted trilogy is where he's going to draw the line for Halloween. But we'll have Orange Hat reviews on next week. Cassie's definitely going to be joining us next week. Might have a couple of people. We're going to have a big old discussion about this film. That's next Monday night here on the channel. Tomorrow night here on the Barroom Podcast, episode 19. We've made it all the way to 19 episodes already, people. This thing is kind of taking a toll. So definitely go check us out tomorrow night. We're going to be talking about Kanye in much detail and the things that he said and kind of the reaction that people have had towards Kanye West over the last couple of days from things that he said. We're going to be talking about She-Hulk taking aim at YouTubers at their season finale. It should be series finale. It should not be another episode of this shit after this week. We're going to talk about a little more detail about how audiences are basically just giving up on movies, at least here in the United States. We'll be talking about Angelina Jolie, who made allegations last week that Brad Pitt beat and choked her and her kids, which is a very interesting development that's come up in the last couple of days. And then we're going to have to talk about how comic books and comic book movies have just ruined an entire generation because now Marvel Comics is using their comic books to get adults to go get the vaccine from Pfizer. So we're going to talk about that very interesting and disturbing trend tomorrow night. And then Wednesday night, we'll be finishing up our Digimon saga, myself and Nerdigans, with the worst Digimon series of all time, which is Frontier. We'll go ahead and give a conclusion to that whole series this Wednesday night on Retro Wave Reviews. And, of course, Wednesday night, Black Pill Stream. We'll be back with Bounding in the Comics, Spencer, Josh, and John, obviously. John, the guy who founded the fucking site. Can't even remember his name, but we'll be doing that one on Wednesday night as well. So we got a lot coming up, a lot of good stuff in store. So we're here fishing for good movies, and hopefully next week we'll at least have something to talk about. And yeah, Rob, what's that YouTube channel? We'll have to put it in the description for you so people can subscribe and then ask you where's your content at. But until then, any other final words you guys want to say before we roll out of here?
Go Raiders.
I just want
We're losing by 4 right now. Go Raiders.
I was literally just about to say it would be the Raiders to blow a 17-point lead in Kansas City, and they're currently down right now. But they are driving, so maybe they'll pull this one out somehow. But until then, we will see you guys tomorrow night on the Barroom Podcast, and then we have a much bigger show next Monday night. We'll be talking about Halloween Ends. Hopefully, they will never make another one after this one, but we all know there's going to be a 75-year-old Jamie Lee Curtis making another movie in 13 years. So until then, good night, goodbye, adios, see you later. Toodles.